Hello, thanks for joining us. Marivella's away tonight. I'm Shannon Martin. A terrifying night for Toronto firefighters. Two of them were sent to hospital after battling a blaze downtown. A veteran captain remains in the intensive care unit suffering critical injuries. With more on what happened, here's Angelina King.
Toronto's fire chief calls it one of the worst case scenarios.
There really isn't a phone call that a fire chief will ever get that bothers me more.
Two firefighters injured on the job after stepping off a roof, falling 3 stories, landing on concrete.
They were working very, very hard under very challenging conditions. It's dark, there's a large volume of smoke that's emanating from a very, very aggressive fire.
Both firefighters rushed to nearby St. Mike's Hospital. The captain, a 36-year veteran, remains in critical condition in intensive care. The other suffered a broken leg and face lacerations. The house is abandoned, which poses challenges. Crews don't know if people are inside, so search and rescue is the first priority. When the firefighters fell, they were creating ventilation on the roof to allow crews to go inside.
Our people will assume and take on a considerable amount of risk in order to ensure and do everything we can do to protect what may be residents inside the building.
In this case, nobody was inside. Last month, the city approved an application for the house to be demolished. The mayor says fires at abandoned buildings are happening too often.
We have to do a better job working with the owners. The owners in this case clearly tried, and the deputy acknowledged that to me. They boarded the building up.
The firefighter union's health and safety chair says it's been a while since a member was injured this seriously. He says the job is getting more dangerous and that crews are trained to expect the worst in a dynamic situation.
It's an orchestrated event in a very short period of time in a very chaotic situation. And remember, we're running in and people are running out.
He says an investigation into what led to the injuries is underway. Recommendations will be sent to the Labor Ministry.
It's obvious that we don't want this to happen. And how do we prevent it from going forward?
In addition to that investigation, Toronto Police, Fire, and the Office of the Fire Marshal are all working together to still try and determine how and why this fire started in the first place. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Police are now identifying the victim in a deadly shooting that happened outside of Brampton Elementary School. It was yesterday around the lunch hour. Peel police found the body of 18-year-old Lorenzo Wright of Brampton. He was suffering from gunshot wounds. He died on scene. Ridgeview Public School, that's near Kingsview Boulevard and Brenda Avenue, was closed yesterday for the investigation, though police told school officials there was no safety risk to the school. So far, no suspect information has been released. Commuters this weekend may want to be avoiding parts of Line 2 as track work is underway. Today through Sunday, Line 2 is closed between Victoria Park and Kennedy stations. Shuttle buses are running instead, and TTC staff are on hand to help. Expect a lot of activity around Union Station tonight, but Metrolink says not to worry, it is all a drill. Things look pretty normal right now, but a little later, as many as 150 volunteers will be playing the role of victim who are seriously injured, giving Toronto paramedics a chance to go through their response protocol. Metrolink's making it clear, though, again, this is not an actual emergency, and they're asking the public not to call 911. The exercise begins sometime later tonight and runs through until early tomorrow morning. For more than 100 years, a large, rusted-out boat has sat stuck at the top of Canada's Horseshoe Falls, but stormy weather has now pushed the historic iron scow closer and closer to the edge. Lorenda Redekop takes us there.
Tourists marvel at the power and beauty of all that water. Around 1 million bathtubs worth every minute. But for the locals, there's another attraction, around 600 meters upstream. That hunk of metal out there used to look much more like a boat. The barge, known as the Niagara Scow, remained stuck for 101 years, until Halloween night. It finally moved.
It looks like the half that was left has spun in place. So it's maybe moved about 50 meters, 50 meters.
The cause? Powerful gusts of wind. This is just the latest twist in what's already a fascinating story. Back in 1918, with 2 U.S. crew members on board, the boat became stuck. The 2 men spent an entire night as people tried to figure out how to rescue them. Sending a rescue boat through that fast water was out of the question. The U.S. Coast Guard got involved. Finally, they managed to send out a lifeline, and one man, a Canadian, headed out for the rescue, earning a Medal of Bravery. This local man came out with his family just last week and is back.
You never know. We might have one more bigger storm. This might move. It might fall down to the falls too.
So I don't think it's going to go in a big chunk, but as it has over the years, it's going bit by bit.
But he says it could happen. They never expected it to move at all. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Niagara Falls.
Time for our first check on the forecast. Let's bring in Sonia Sash from the Weather Network. And from everyone's stories today, you can tell it was just sort of gloomy out there today.
Absolutely. We saw a lot of precipitation in various forms today. We are actually tracking a system right now. It's making its way through southwestern Ontario. It is in London right now, and there is lightning and, of course, thunder along with that. And again, it's making its way into the GTA, but let's take a look at that. So over the last several hours, we have seen a system, so off and on showers throughout the day, and that will continue. So again, we are tracking a system. It will make it to the GTA, rain only, not lightning, by around 8 or 9 p.m. today. So it's going to be a little soggy tonight, feeling like 1 degree. So again, bundle up. The overnight, it's going to be 2 degrees, but it's not it's actually a fast-moving system, so the rain will not stay very long. And by the afternoon tomorrow, it's going to be 6 degrees, but it's going to feel like 2. So bundle up, bring your scarf. And again, it's going to be mostly showers over the weekend, and in the northern parts, in and around the Orangeville area as well, higher elevated regions, we'll see some snow. So again, hopefully you have your snow tires on, because we will see some accumulation. This is the next couple of days for you. Again, soggy on Monday, but it's going to be quite nice on Tuesday. And Barrie, as I mentioned, into the north, you will see some snow, but that won't last. It does turn into rain by Monday.
Oh my gosh, but we're already hearing about it already.
Winter is here.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you in just a little bit.
Great, thank you.
A homegrown rising tennis star has advanced to the final of a tennis tournament in Paris. Canadian Denis Shapovalov advances after one of the greatest players in the history of the sport, Rafael Nadal, withdrew due to injury. The 20-year-old from Vaughan now faces another superstar, Novak Djokovic, in tomorrow's championship match. Almost 500,000 homes remain without power in Quebec after strong winds and rain battered the province. We'll find out when residents can expect to get back on the grid right after the break. It was a day of darkness for nearly 500,000 people in Quebec after a powerful storm hit the province. Sarah Levitt shows us the damage and the repair work that's now underway.
There's structural damage up there.
Karine Bellefeuille is taking stock of what happened to her home. Winds reaching up to 100 kilometers per hour tore through the province. Here, that meant a gigantic tree branch smashing into her home.
I have 3 kids, and they were devastated. They're anxious, they're crying. I cried the whole day yesterday.
Scenes like this one are taking place all across the province. Hundreds of hydro workers have been out working to repair downed power lines, replacing poles and reconnecting wires wherever they can. Hydro-Quebec says teams have been working 16-hour shifts to ensure service is restored.
We have 2,500 trees that are fall, on wiring and on wires all over the province. 300 of them wires are underground right now, so we need to rebuild very often, and we have about 250 posts to reconstruct. So there's a lot of area where we need to reconstruct. So all our people, we're treating this as a major emergency in Hydro-Québec with a lot of intensity right now.
Pour moi, c'est une tragédie.
In a town just east of Montreal, parishioners of St. Pie Church say the loss of one of the church bells is a tragedy. The winds ripped it from the roof. Elsewhere, cleanup means reconstruction. This sinkhole opened up when the current through a culvert became too strong.
Until tomorrow night, we must be able to have the vast majority of the people getting back electricity.
But it's not all good news.
Once this is secured, the insurance company said they'll eventually call a contractor to come and start repairing the damage, but not to expect anything to be finished before spring.
Spring.
Yep.
People with flooded homes know it'll take time to get things fixed, with winter not far around the corner. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
To Winnipeg, where a 3-year-old boy has died. Hunter Straight-Smith was stabbed multiple times in his sleep on Wednesday, suffering severe brain damage.
If you're a parent, if you're an auntie, if you're an uncle, if you're a grandparent, I want you to love the little ones in your life. I want you to squeeze them a little tighter tonight.
Residents gathering last night to show support, but members of an anti-violence group have been holding weekly meetings for years. The founder says this attack should serve as a wake-up call. Earlier this afternoon, another 100 people got together in front of Winnipeg's Children's Hospital. The boy was taken off life support earlier today. And in the U.S., hundreds marched in New York last night, accusing police of brutality. It follows a pair of arrests that went viral on social media. But some argue there are details that are missing from some of those videos. Our Steve D'Souza reports.
Tensions that had been building all week erupted last night. Anger and frustration directed at the New York Police Department. The protests were sparked by 2 recent incidents. There was the takedown of a 19-year-old on the subway. More than a dozen officers responded, some dragging him down, despite his apparent willingness to surrender. Then this, an officer punching a 15-year-old after police were called to break up a brawl on a subway platform. In response, protesters also jumped the turnstiles, highlighting what they say is the problem of over-policing on the subway. Community organizers note that the passengers on this train seemed more afraid of the police, and that the suspect asked onlookers to call his mother in case something happened to him.
It's so jarring. They rush this young man, they throw him to the ground. This is a young man who moments before was saying, should I get on the ground, right? So it's clearly over-policing and criminalization of poor people of color.
Police say in this case, they were responding to a report of an individual with a gun, and that the videos don't tell the whole story. Instead, they say it contributes to an anti-police sentiment, like this incident on Halloween.
The people who wish the police harm in our society take their cues from the politicians, and the politicians have yet to come out and denounce any of this behavior.
Protesters say they don't want the hundreds of additional officers patrolling the subway that the governor has promised. They want an investment in transit and accountability.
There's accountability, and then there's some real conversations about protocols and what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate. Like, how do we actually define excessive and abusive force here?
Until that happens, those on the streets worry that more police in the subway could lead to more violence. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
A social media app that's popular with teenagers is reportedly at the center of a national security review in the U.S. It's called TikTok. As Yelena Adzik shows us, while it may seem harmless and fun, the investigation is looking into whether it poses serious privacy risks.
The TikTok app is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance. It's an absolute smash hit that attracts a young demographic that devours super short videos such as these ones, often featuring lip syncing to popular music and funny dances. Well, it may all seem lighthearted or silly, but reportedly a serious U.S. investigation deems TikTok, quote, a potential counterintelligence threat we cannot ignore. Quote. That's according to political figures Chuck Schumer and Senator Tom Cotton, who launched the investigation into TikTok's parent company, ByteDance. The investigation is being handled by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. And to understand the context, consider this. ByteDance has direct access to private data from 1.5 billion people, because that's how many people are active monthly users of the apps they put out into the world. And that's both a lot of sensitive information being held by a Chinese company and a lot of powerful influence it can potentially exert over subscribers and what they can or cannot post. After word spread that TikTok may have censored content related to the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, the company replied with a flat-out denial. Quote, TikTok does not remove content based on sensitivities related to China. We have never been asked by the Chinese government to remove any content, and we would not do so if asked, period. TikTok often makes a point of the fact that although its parent company, ByteDance, is from China, TikTok itself is based in California. Nonetheless, U.S. regulators are said to focus on potential national security risks associated with all of the TikTok talk. Yelena Adzik, CBC News, Toronto.
We have one Earth. The whole world has made a mistake, but the whole world can actually change the mistake into something correct.
Members of the Sikh community are planting more than 1,000 trees this weekend in the GTA. We'll explain why, coming up. Plus, celebrating the lives of the loved ones we've lost, Day of the Dead festivities took over the Stacked Market this afternoon. We'll take you there right after the break. Many of us are trying to do our part when it comes to fighting climate change. For some, like those in the Sikh community, it's part of their faith. As Kelda Hewen shows us, hundreds braved the gloomy weather to plant trees today, symbolizing an important anniversary.
They came in droves, gloves on hand, shovels in tow.
Take your soil, put it to the side.
What are we doing here today?
Planting a tree.
The activity organized by the City of Brampton together with the nonprofit Eco-Sikh. The Canadian chapter of the organization formed just a couple of months ago, connecting Sikh values to environmental issues.
It's a grassroots initiative to combat climate change, which I personally feel grassroots is the best way to go. Governments might take a little bit of time to start moving.
Jasdeep Singh is one of the hundreds from Brampton's Sikh community lending a hand to plant 550 trees in a field beside Gore Meadows Community Center. That number is significant. It commemorates the 550th anniversary of the birth of Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism.
It conveys that we need to have a harmonious relationship with nature. It talks about air as a teacher, water as a father, earth as a mother.
It's all God's creations at the end of the day. I think every faith understands that God created what we're looking at right here. So you could tie it into any faith, essentially.
Answering the organization's call, Sikh communities across Canada have planted 10,000 trees since September. The goal? 55,000 trees by 2021. And for many people here, like Sharonjeet Kaur, it's also important to make it a family affair.
These kids are actually leading the way for us to make sure that we are leading by example as well.
And the group isn't done yet for the weekend. Tomorrow, they will plant 550 more trees in Scarborough. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's a live look at the Toronto skyline right now. At this time tomorrow, it's going to be much darker, and that's, of course, because tonight we fall back for the end of daylight savings time. Let's bring Sonia back in for a look at the full forecast. I know we get that extra sleep, but I still manage to feel more tired.
Do you? Why?
I don't know why. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I'm all confused, I guess.
Maybe
Or
your
old.
cycle. No, you're not. Maybe your cycle is just used to waking up at a certain time still,
right.
and it still thinks it's 6.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? But let's get into the forecast right now. We are tracking a system that is making its way through southwestern Ontario. It is actually in London now. It will reach the GTA by 8 or 9 o'clock this evening, and you can see that moving through. In the northern parts of Ontario and even southern parts of Ontario, Barrie, Orangeville, you will see some mixed precipitation, snow and rain combined. So let's talk about the wind gusts. Although not severe, if you are downtown Toronto on your bicycle, again, just take some precaution. It does wind down in terms of wind gusts, but again, just be careful with that. Let's take a look at the rainfall this weekend. So a lot of it we're going to see over the next couple of days. So 5 to 10 millimeters is expected. Toronto, we might see just less than 5 millimeters, but in certain areas, again, up to 15 millimeters of rain, snow. So there is a very big divide in terms of the south will see the rain, the northern parts will see some of that snow. So up to 5 centimeters in some areas. So Barrie, Orangeville, as I mentioned before. But let's take a look at tonight. So it is soggy again by 8, 9 o'clock. We're going to see that system make its way in. So bring your umbrella, drive carefully. It does move out fairly quickly, so it will be dry in the overnight. But I do want to show you the 7-day, because by Thursday, we have a modified Arctic air that's going to bring the temperatures a lot colder. So with that, we could see some snow on the Thursday. So hopefully you have your snow tires on. But this is your look over the next 3 days in the GTA. Again, that system really impacting you on Monday mostly, and Sunday is going to be the coldest day of the weekend for most of us, and then temperatures do rebound next week. So bundle up if you can.
Bundle up, but at least we get some sunshine coming. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It is November, but the spooky celebrations are not over. Today marks the Mexican holiday, the Day of the Dead, and festivities took over the city's stacked market. We joined in to learn a little bit more about the celebration.
Here we are screening the movie Coco for the kids. We are having some wrestling match today. So basically, Day of the Dead is a 2-day celebration in which we celebrate that our people that pass away are coming to pass time with us. So instead of being sad and feeling sorry about it, we just celebrate and we tell stories about them. So we prepare an altar for them. So it's basically putting all the food and drinks that they like for this. So it could be tequila or a soft drink, or jarritos, for example, anything that they like, any Mexican dish that they like. And we expect them to come on the night of November the 1st and take all the flavor of that food and then leave the food just there, but the flavor is gone from that food. And it's just a way to celebrate them and remember and tell fun stories about them and be happy about them. And it's all celebrating Mexico. Well, it's basically just celebrating life of the people that we love and it's not with us anymore.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, of course, cbcnews.ca. We hope you have a great night. And as we go, we want to show you just a little bit more from the Day of the Dead celebrations. Have a good one.